All right. So I can say here that leadership, we have heard about leadership so many times in management, in school, everywhere. You know, this is not something which is new. It's something that you have heard so many times. So what is leadership? I will define, I think probably in the third slide there, we'll see. But on my first slide there, just leadership has more to do with you and less to do with position. There is a confusion most of the time. People think that leadership is something to do with the position. If somebody probably is a manager, is a director, is a president, or then that person is a leader. As far as somebody has got a position, then we consider him as a leader. But leadership does not start there. Leadership starts with yourself. So leadership is more to do with you rather than position. And if you cannot lead yourself, if you don't have the aspects or the ingredients to make you effective leader, then it's quite difficult to. Look, sorry, Charles, I think, let me try if I can share screen. Charles, I can't hear you.
I'm saying, yeah, now it should allow you now.
Okay.
Yeah, go on.
Okay, so let me see. If you can see, just let me know.
Let me do this. Not yet.
Okay, not yet. Okay. Okay, share screen. Press. Okay, share. Can you see?
Yep.
All right, that's good. That's good. Okay, so let me try if we can go back to my first slide. Okay. All right, so you can see properly there. Okay, so let's go to my second slide. All right, there are different quotes here and phrases. I'll start with the first one where I say, where there are two people, one is a leader, and where there is one person, one is a leader. This can be a little bit controversial. Why do I say where there are two people, one is a leader, and where there is one person, one is a leader? Because leadership is simply influence. Leadership is influence. So wherever you see two people, one person will influence the other. Okay? And as well, because leadership starts with you, so if you are alone, then you are a leader because you influence yourself. Because leadership simply is influence. Okay, another phrase they say, as it was said, you are what you eat. So you are some sort of what you feed your mind. Because leadership is more to do with your mind. What do you feed yourself? What do you, it's like when they say that you are what you eat. Whatever you eat is how we'll see you. If you eat junk, then you will know this person probably eats junk. Okay, you won't hide, you know. You know, if you eat nice, we'll see that this person is healthy. You can hide probably for some time, but it will just catch up with you in your life. So it is about what you feed your mind, you know. Leadership is about what you feed yourself. every single day. You are what you feed your mind. We will see you, probably you'll be more exposed as well when you are given a position of leadership. Okay, I think you'll see in some of my slides down. Let me just go quickly to another phrase there, which say, if you cannot lead yourself, you will follow anything. And another one connected to that, if you cannot lead yourself, then you cannot lead others. Most of the times we want to acquire position, we want to lead others, but how can you lead others if you cannot lead yourself? Because as I said before, leadership starts with you. It's less to do with position, it's more to do with you. There's one statement Dr. Myles Munroe said here, that position does not make you a leader, but rather expose your ignorance. All right? And that's why it's very important, as that statement where I say it is about what you are, the sum total of what you feed your mind. So if you don't feed yourself well before acquiring a position, then when you are given a certain position of leadership, actually that will expose your ignorance. Because most of people, they chase position. Oh, I just want to acquire this position. I just want to acquire. But what you need to focus and what you need to spend your time is to make sure that you feed yourself well before acquiring any position. You can lead yourself before leading others, because leadership starts with you leading yourself. All right. So we come to our definition of what is leadership. There are so many definitions. I don't want to go to those definitions. There are so many definitions. As I gave my introduction when I started, that I don't know it all. Even the big teachers of this subject, they have not covered it all. So it's quite wide subject. But this is the definition which was given by John Maxwell, where he said, leadership is simply influence. So it is ability to influence. And because we are speaking about self-leadership, number one person to be influenced is you. So when you speak about self-leadership, we can say that is the ability to influence yourself. Ability to influence yourself. There are so many other teachers who came with different definition about self-leadership. Some, they say that it is ability to do things intentionally, or to set some values and be able to live by those values. Some people, they say, is ability to lead yourself, or to push yourself, to guide yourself to achieve certain objectives or certain goals. Okay, so some people, they have reduced self-leadership just on ability to push yourself, ability to influence yourself to achieve certain goals and objectives. But for me, I can say that it is more than that. Self-leadership, for me, I can say, is living, ability to influence yourself to live on a high set standard of value, ability to control yourself, to control your appetites. There is somebody who say, I think Charles like that statement, I'm the master of my own soul. Okay, so his ability to, I can say, for those sailors, to set your own sail, okay, and to move but that sail that you have set for yourself. Because if you cannot control yourself, how can you control others? How can you set objectives and goals and be able to achieve those goals if you cannot control yourself. So leadership starts with controlling yourself, self-governance. You are the master of your own soul. You know, you have that ability to say no to this. You can, I know there is another Paul there. So I'm Paul as well. So Paul can say his ability to say to yourself, Paul, you don't do this. Paul, do this. Paul, this is the final line. You cannot cross this. Okay? That's self-leadership. And there is nothing as difficult as leading yourself. If you can lead yourself, it's very easy leading others. Most of us, we jump and we want to lead others. But I'm telling you, to lead self is more difficult than leading others. And if you can lead yourself, it is very easy to lead others. And that's why we say leadership is influence. If you can influence yourself to be able to live by the standard or set values that you have set for yourself, controlling yourself, then it's very easy to go to the second stage of setting goals and objectives and push yourself to acquire those goals. And after that, you can influence others to achieve certain objectives and goals. Because leading others is simply, there is a certain vision, there are certain objectives and goals, and influencing others to achieve those ones. So how can you influence others to achieve goals and objectives if you cannot influence yourself? If you cannot control yourself? That's why I said, if you manage to lead yourself, it is very easy to lead others. Let's go to another. So here we come to the levels of leadership. Can you see my slides properly? Give me a thumbs up if you can see properly. You can see the slides properly, yeah?
Yes.
All right, cool. Okay, so these are levels of leadership. Number one, or level number one, it is self-leadership. Level number two is leadership at the area of your gift. And third level is positional leadership. So as I said before, you can see a lot of people, they run into positional leadership, that I need to acquire a certain title, then I'm a leader. While that is the last level. The first level starts with self-leadership. Because you have been given a life to lead. The moment you're born, you have a life that you have been given as a gift to lead. That's the foundation. That is number one. That's the first one. You fail in that, then these two levels, it will be difficult for you to be effective in those two levels. I will speak a little bit on level number two, leadership at the area of your gift. Everybody has been given a gift. You came into this world with a gift to give to the world. It might be your skills, it might be some certain abilities, it might be things that you are given natural, it's born with you. I know sometimes we go to school, we go into training and stuff to sharpen our skills, to sharpen our gift, to make ourselves better. But there is something that you have been given naturally. Every person in this world, there is a gift you have been given to bring into this world. So in that gift, you are a leader. So that's a leadership in that area of your gift. Here we can speak like they are gifted musicians, they're gifted footballers, they're gifted in areas of art. There are some people who are gifted So many areas, even yourself, check yourself. There is an area that you have a gift, and that distinguishes you with others. And if you look careful in that gift, you sharpen it, yeah? You prune it, you water it, you will be a leader. You'll be effective leader in that area of your gift. Some of us, we ignore those gifts, and we are not effective in that level number 2. After that, that's when it comes to level number 3. Level number 3, this is a position on our leadership. Let's say you can be probably a CEO of a company, you can be a president, you can be, there's so many positions. And I can say that in these 3, 2 are determined by you, and 1 is not determined by you. This is determined by others. You don't have control of level number 3. You have control of these 2. So why so many people, they focus on number 3, something that they don't have control, instead of focusing on what they have control? If you can do well in these 2 levels, this will come automatically. People will give you position because you are good at this one. These are natural, and you have control, and you can better yourself in this one. But most of the time we focus on level number 3, and we ignore the 2. And when we come to level number 3, because it is at the top, we are exposed in these 2. You remember, as I said, that position does not make you a leader, but rather expose you, or expose your ignorance. So if you are not good at these 2, and especially number 1, when you come here at the top, because that's where we see you, you'll be exposed. We will see everything. So we'll see if you are not good at this one. But most of the time, we focus on this one and we ignore the 2. But I can say these are the foundational. And I want to speak more about level number 1, self-leadership. So in self-leadership here, we can say that it's the bedrock of leadership. This is the foundation. And this is a determinant on how far you can go in your life and in other levels of leadership, either in your gift or in a positional leadership. For those who are Bible readers, we call this self-control. Is one of the elements of the fruit of spirit for those who are Bible readers. It is a self-control. This is ability to control yourself. It is ability to control your appetites, your ability to control your emotion. It's ability to put that we call self-governance, a governor of yourself. I put something as well, is ability to control your chemicals. You know, everybody has got chemicals. So it's ability to control your chemicals. You know, this is the foundation. And I said before, and I saw the reaction of Paul when I said this is the hardest of all. It's hardest. I know Paul has got something when we come into discussion. Charles, don't forget to give Paul a chance. Yeah. It's very easy to influence others, but to influence you is quite difficult. Let me give you an example. How many times you have set probably an alarm to wake up 6 o'clock? Do you always wake up 6? But how is it, if even for those who are married, if your wife tells you, wake me up probably 8 o'clock, how easy is that? It's very easy. You just go, wife, it's time, wake up. So it's very easy to wake up other people rather than wake yourself up. It's very easy to tell others, eat, okay, something, but to tell yourself is difficult. Yeah. Go and speak to those who are trying to stop drinking or stop smoking. It's very easy to tell others, hey, it's no good, don't drink, don't smoke. But what about you? Sometimes you try and try, but it's quite difficult. So it's proven it's quite easy to lead others, but influence yourself is hard. So if you can manage to lead yourself, the rest is just a story, it's easy. And this can reward you with a long life, long career, and good legacy. You manage to lead yourself, one of the reward is long life, long career, and good legacy. Let me go to my next slide. Yeah, self-leadership continues. This is the most ignored level of leadership, but it's the most important of all. Okay, and I've said that. And also, many leaders have failed here, even though some have conquered the world. We can see people who have conquered the world, but they have failed in this area. How strong the building is determined by its foundation, and how high the building can go is determined by its foundation. I just want to speak a little bit on this. The building we see, tall buildings we see. If you go in London, there is that building, I don't know what they call it, is the tallest in London. The strength and how strong it is determined by its foundation. And the tall buildings that we can see, how high the building can go. Sorry, Bo?
It's called the Shard.
The Shard, yes. Thank you, Bo. The Shard. The Shard there, it stands because of the foundation. And most of the time, I think all of us will agree on this. When they build the foundation of those buildings, we don't see. You know, most of the time they are covered by probably iron sheets or the fence. You know, by the time they remove that, the building is already high. If you have been going through building sites, when they're building a foundation, you can see. So sometimes we celebrate people when they're already up there, and we just celebrate instead of taking time to ask, how long did it take you to build a foundation? How deep is your foundation? So before you celebrate any person's success, read and study their background and check how deep is their foundation. Because if their foundation is not deep, it's just a matter of time. When the storms of life comes, then they'll just fall. So how tall the building is and how strong. I don't know what you want to build in your life. I don't know how many millions you want to accumulate. I don't know how big or how many companies you want to build. It is start with self-leadership. That is the foundation. You manage to build that, you can go far. If you ignore that, build whatever you can build, it will not last. I will live to testify that, and I will live to see that it will not last. You can fight, you can refuse what I'm saying, but that's the fact. Another thing I can say here, you have full control of this level. So if you fail here, don't blame others. Remember I said the high level of leadership, that one, you don't have control of the position. People can give you position. But this one you have control. That's why it's called the self-leadership. So you have no one to blame. If you fail here, No one to blame. That's why it's very important. And I say here as well, this is the level where the character is built, tested, and proven. You don't build your character when you have already been given a position. No, that's where you are exposed. And I can say human beings, we are tested with 3 things. There are so many other things, but I can name 3. Number 1, power. Number 2, money. Number 3, sex. These 3 things will test you. In any position you are going, you'll be tested in these 3 things. And most people, they have failed in one way or another. Some, they have abused power. Some, they have abused money. That's why so many people who are given, who win lottery, even if they win million, because they have not built a strong foundation, then they fail. Most of them, they are bankrupt. Most of them, they die poor. They lose all the money because they have not built a strong foundation. And another thing is sex. These are 3 things you'll be tested. Your character will be tested in these 3 things. If you are married, you are not married, you'll be tested in those things. That's why I say self-leadership is how you can control yourself and your appetites. How can you say no? These are my values and I'm not going to cross them. Based on where I'm going, I cannot cross this. Yes, I've been given power, but I can control myself. Are we together? Okay, I'm just nearly finishing, Charles, so that you can take over. Am I well with my time? Okay, cool. So there is this thing here. Sorry, Charles, I couldn't get Maradona's picture. I wanted to get one, but I think we all know. I've written here, Maradona paradox. Sadly, this man passed, I think it was last week. And I was trying to follow the reaction in his country. People were crying and crying and crying and crying, you know. Yes, in Argentina now there is Corona, but people didn't care. They came, thousands and thousands of people to mourn the death of this man. I've written there, Maradona paradox. Where did it all go wrong? This guy is the greatest footballer the world has ever seen. Actually, when I was following his story, they say this was once the best footballer of the century. He's a hero in his motherland. Somebody was actually say when they were mourning, and then there were some journalists who were asking people questions, and somebody just say he was actually crying and say, Maradona, I don't care. We don't care what you have done with your life. What matters is what you have done with ours. This guy was the greatest leader on his gift. He was a gifted footballer. He worked on the talent that he was given. This guy was the best footballer the world has ever seen. But where did it all go wrong? Self-leadership. Self-leadership. We all know that even when he was playing football, he started using drugs. Actually, he died recently. He was alcohol dependent. He was depending on alcohol. I don't know, doctor. There is Dr. Chaz here can explain to me. I'm not really good at medical. they say alcoholic dependent. So I don't know, he was depending on alcohol. He cannot live without drinking. And he came from the surgery. He had a tumor, so they had to conduct a surgery. And then he came out of the hospital. And then even after that, he continued to use alcohol, and he couldn't control himself. We know even in his career, there was a time he was on and off because of the issue of drugs and because of the issue of alcohol and other things. He had a lot of scandals. He was a gifted footballer, but he failed in self-leadership. He failed in leading self. Who knows? Probably he could have gone far. You know, he was a captain of his national team. In 86, I think, when they won, was it 86, I think? They won the World Cup. I watched some games, I was following. Actually, he took the game by himself. A lot of games he took by himself. You know, there are those people who could have changed the game of football. For my fellow footballers here who are following football, they can agree with me. But he failed in self-leadership. So that's why we can say this is a foundation. Yes, I understand his rough background of where he came from. But we say that self-leadership has lots to do with yourself. Regardless of the background that you have come from, you have a chance to remedy yourself. You have a chance to change. Know yourself, know where you come from, know your backgrounds, know the things that you are struggling with, and then try to overcome those ones so that you can be the master of your own soul. And then you'll be able to master in the area of your gift, and you'll be able to master a position of leadership. So it's very important to do what we call to be self-aware. Self-awareness of who you are. What are the things that you are struggling with? Because if they don't catch up with you now, they will catch up with you when you have power, when you have money. Now probably you have somebody who helps you and tell you no. But when you have power, nobody can tell you no. So if you cannot tell yourself no, now, when you have money and power, you can't. And bad enough, nobody can, because you have power. Imagine when you are the CEO of the company, you have employed probably 50, 60 people. You are the top, your company is in the London Stock Exchange. You have money, you have everything. Who can tell you no? Sometimes for some of us, even our wives at that time, you know, you tell them, you know, I'm the CEO. You're just a wife. You know, so it starts with you. So what to do then? As I'm finishing, what to do then? I say, before you stand, sit. Before you walk, stand. And before you run, walk. Before leading others, starting leading self. And before thinking of any position, focus on leading you. Leadership starts with you and ends with you. Position is just a foundation. Position is just a roof, I can say. It's just a roof. You are the foundation. Leadership starts with you and ends with you. It starts with you, and even when they're building, they're starting with the foundation. Do you know when they demolish buildings? The last thing that they demolish is the foundation. So they will go and demolish everything at the top roof, and then the foundation is at last. So leadership starts with you and ends with you. You are the foundation. Position is just a roof. So start building. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Paul.
Wow. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you.
You're still on, you're still sharing your screen. If you stop sharing this screen, actually I can do it from this end.
Okay, that's fine.
I've done it. Yeah, thank you so much, Paul. That was a fantastic presentation.
Thank you.
And it's unfortunate that sometimes we have to kind of squeeze things in and really try and make them fit the time that we have. I know there was a lot more that we could have talked about. I mean, just the point of leadership being influence, we could have spent the whole afternoon just talking about that. So, but there are lots of really good nuggets there that you brought up. And so thank you so much. Leadership is not position. And I think that's the issue, isn't it? Because so many people switch off the moment you say leadership. They switch off because they think that has nothing to do with me. You know, because why? Because I'm not in a position of leadership, or I'm not aspiring to be in a position of leadership, or I'm not planning to be in a position of leadership. We were having a little chat on the chat section there, and then people were going away, and I wrote something up. I said, so many times we think being a leader is being in the spotlight. You know what I mean? Being that person that you see there. And therefore, because some people are a bit shy, they don't like being in the spotlight, they don't want to be there up in the top. So in a way, they kind of shy away from being leaders or talking about leadership or even learning about leadership because they think, I don't want to be in the spotlight. But that's not what leadership is. You know, you don't have to be in the spotlight to be a leader. You know, Obama didn't become a leader when he became president. Actually, it's the reverse. He became president because he was a leader. You know, so leadership is more than just a position. Leadership is a lifestyle. Leadership, I wrote something here. I said leadership is not just a prerequisite to good leadership. No, self-leadership is not just a prerequisite to good leadership, but it's a prerequisite to life in general. I mean, if everybody needs to self-govern, needs to be able to lead themselves, need to be able to control themselves. So thank you so much for that. That was a really, 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 really good presentation. Now, before I do my bit of the presentation, we had a question. It was kind of answered a little bit, but I would like to invite Anthony to ask the question so I can have a bit of a general discussion on it before I do my presentation. Anthony. Hello, Anthony. Are you there? If you are, you're muted. You might need to unmute yourself.
Bottom left corner.
I can see him there, but he's still quiet. Maybe he's gone off for a minute. But yeah. Anybody else who wants to contribute? Paul head. You seem to want to go.
Yeah, give me a minute. I did say a few things. It's gone. I might come back in a minute.
I put you on the spot there. Sorry. Okay. Yeah. So I just wanted to point that out. That when we talk about leadership and self-leadership in particular, because today we're mainly talking about self-leadership, it's not about having that position. It's not about you becoming a manager or becoming a team leader or becoming a director or the president of an organization. Yes, that is important and that is leadership, but that's not basically what we're talking about. We're just talking about you having those skills that as human beings we need to get the best out of life, and leadership is one of them. And in my presentation I'll try and kind of expand that more in a different way. Anthony, are you still there? Can you hear me? No, basically, if I may ask Anthony's question, what Anthony had asked is that why many leaders are not able to transfer their leadership quality. I'm not sure if I understood his question really well.
Yes,
there you are, Anthony.
Yes, I'm here.
Oh, there you go. Can you ask your question?
Can you hear me? My network is just breaking up. My network is breaking up.
We can hear you now. Can you ask that question?
Yes, I mean, like, I was thinking about this leadership, like mostly you found out that people will stay in leadership position for so many years, but at the end of the day, if they leave the position, like especially in our African setting, those people that have been working within, they just want to get rid of all their activities. Why is it not possible for them to actually transfer the leadership for the young generation to follow? Sometimes I experience these things in churches, like somebody will head the church for so many years, but then when they are gone, they just fight to erase everything about them. This happened in politics, so why are they not being able to motivate their followers to actually step into their shoes to continue with their work? Because that is sign of progress. I strongly believe that leadership is a cycle. It should continue. It should be an unbroken cycle, so that after I'm gone, someone else continue with the same process, then the generation continue with those kind of things. But it's not like that in our society.
Yeah. Thank you so much for that question and contribution. Is there anybody who wanted to jump in and say something on that? Victor, I can see your hand up. Do you want to jump in?
Okay.
You're on mute, Victor.
Can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Now, it's just a rejoinder to Anthony's question about why people do not hand over power. People get drunk and become obsessed with the power, the attention, the benefits, the whatever it is that goes with power, to the extent that they believe that it is their God-given rights to be where they are. And that is why you do have people hanging on, clinging on, as we're seeing across the pond with our good friend who hasn't realized that his time is up. But I think within ourselves, if we're able to find, we should know what our limits are. We should know what our limits are. Often enough, these people, stay in power for all sorts of reasons, whether it's corruption, whether they have the charisma, because charisma works both ways. It can be destructive just as constructive, just as much as it can be constructive. So it doesn't come naturally for people to look at succession. We practice that within our family unit. There's an expectation that if, when this time passes, this person would do this. It almost comes natural. But when it comes to positional leadership, people think, well, as long as I've got to this position, it is my right to stay there. And often in time, it becomes very, very destructive to the society, organization, or whatever, or the country that they're meant to be leading.
Thank you so much, Victor. I think that is a very important point. And I think Paul had mentioned that as well when he mentioned the three things that become the trap, the fall for man, the power, the money, and the sex. And yes, when it comes to power, it becomes a problem to a lot of people.
Yeah.
What I normally say simply is that these people they're not leaders. They occupy positions of leadership, but themselves are not leaders, because leaders focus on people. Rulers, on the other hand, they focus on power. All they're interested in is the power. And therefore they will not think beyond that power, and they're not thinking of people. They're not thinking in the best interest of people. So yeah, absolutely. So that is the problem, and I think it's a high time for us to train more leaders. But in a more personal setting, in a more personal note, I think these sort of challenges for leaders in that sense can also be adopted at a personal level, to self. That we have to ask ourselves, am I a good leader? And by that, I'm not talking about position. Am I a good leader to myself, first and foremost? Am I governing myself well enough? Am I influencing myself? Like Paul said, that leadership is influence. Am I influencing myself well enough? Am I in control even? When I come to my presentation, you'd see the importance of control. Who is in control of your life? You know, there is that as well. So it's very important for us to ask ourselves this question. And all these things that we're learning here, that sometimes might feel like they're out there, we're talking about leadership for others, but then we can turn those questions inward and ask ourselves, am I a good leader to myself? Am I actually, can I really be honest with myself and say whether I've led my life as well as I could have? Having said that, if you have any other contribution, hold that thought. I'll do my presentation really quickly. I'll just try and do it within 15 minutes and I'm done, so that we can have another sort of discussion right at the end before we finish. Where is that? Let me see if I can bring it up really quickly. I don't know if you guys can see that. Can you see that? If you can see, give me a thumbs up. Yep. Okay. Now let me just go straight. Basically, Paul has covered a lot about self-leadership and leadership in general, but I wanted to kind of zoom into specifically when it comes to self-leadership, about leading yourself. And there are 4 areas that I'll be talking about today. The first area is the area of responsibility. There is the area of control. There is the area of self-mastery. And the last thing, I call it success. I'll explain more about it when I get to that. But these, in my opinion, are the areas that when it comes to your self-leadership, when you think about leading yourself and how, so how do I lead myself? How do I best manage my life? Basically, these are the areas I think we can really focus on and really try to get the best out of. And the first one is responsibility. And here it's about taking responsibility. Now, to explain this, I'll explain the levels of human existence. Us as humans, we can either be dependent, we can be independent, or we can be interdependent. Now, a lot of people aspire to be independent. You know, you just want your independence, you want to be able to do your own things, you want to be autonomous, you want your freedom, you want that. But actually, that's not the highest level of human existence, because we are social beings. We've been created to live codependently, to almost like depend on one another. You know, if as a human being you're on your own, out in the jungle, living on your own, you're not going to have the best life. Trust me, you won't. It doesn't matter how much you're given to stay there with, because in a way we are not designed to survive on our own. So the highest level of existence is actually interdependence, where we actually look at one another, we rely on one another, we inspire one another, and as a result, we become better ourselves as a result. So with responsibility, when you talk of dependence, that level of let me use this analogy. A child, when a child is born and is very young, he's dependent. You know, he's dependent on the parents for food, dependent on the parents for shelter, for clothes, for knowledge, for everything basically. But then as that child grows, it gets to the stage where they want their independence. I'm at that stage with my kids now, especially my older one. You know, he's 11 years old. He starts to feel like, oh, I can do this on my own. Why do you tell me I can do this? You don't tell me that. So they're starting to kind of express their own independence, if you like. So as the child grows, they start becoming independent. But then once that child grows and becomes an adult, they're independent. More often than not, that person finds the love of his life or the love of her life. And what do? They hitch up, they get married. And they move from being independent, something that they were really striving all their lives to have. All of a sudden, they go into the next stage, which is interdependence, you know, where it's not so much about themselves, but it's about enriching the life of the family. And that cycle continues again when they have kids and life goes on. So we see that dependence, interdependence, is just the natural progression of events. But with dependence, that's where people don't take any responsibility. We don't expect kids to have a responsibility. But as they grow up, we expect them to start taking their own responsibility. I'm now starting to tell my children that, yes, you might not cook for yourselves. You might not provide your own food. You might not have your own house, but at least I expect you to make your own bed. You know, I expect that you would get your laundry down to the washing machine. You know what I mean? So you're starting to make them take a bit of responsibility, take their own responsibility, carry their own weight a little bit. So that's where the independence comes. The level of interdependence, however, is not just you taking your responsibility, but it's when you accept your responsibility and the responsibility of others. It's when you take responsibility beyond yourself. And that's what leadership is all about. Leadership is when you're not just thinking of yourself, but you're thinking of someone else. You're taking responsibility beyond yourself. You're making your influence, you're making your mark beyond yourself. And so I have this quote here which says, leadership starts with taking responsibility beyond yourself. The more responsibility means the more influence and control. So as Paul had said before, that leadership is all about influence. We see here that to get that influence, you have to take responsibility. Part of the problem that we have in life is we find it really hard to take responsibility. We always look for an excuse. We always look for the scapegoat. The reason why I couldn't do something, the reason why I'm a failure in a certain area, the reason why things are not going my way. We always look for an external reason rather than looking within and say, right, this is my responsibility. It hasn't gone well because there is something that I haven't done right. What can I do different? And I think once you start having that, that's when things do change. And that goes even in your relationship. Some of the relationship problems and the struggles that we have in relationships, because somehow you always think it is someone else's fault. We don't take responsibility. And what do I mean by this? Even when you feel that, yes, definitely this was someone else's fault, taking responsibility is when you ask yourself the question that, how can I change this? How can I make this a different situation? How can I turn this? Yes, maybe someone else has done something they shouldn't have done, but what can I do to change this situation? That is what taking responsibility means. And that's what leadership is. And that's how you can apply that personally in your life, in your relationships, in whatever situation that you have, in your family, to your children, and everything else. Now, the second thing is control. I said, first one is responsibility, second one is control, and the third one is self-mastery. Now, with control, Paul did mention, and he didn't even know that I had this quote up here, I'm the master of my fate, I'm the captain of my soul. I love this poem. It's an Invictus poem written by William Ernest Henley. He's a 19th century English poet. And I love this guy's story. I mean, if you've never heard of William Henley, just Google him. Go on Google him, read about him, just have a bit of a background story of his life. Because once you understand his background, his life, it will kind of, his poems will make more sense. You know what I mean? And I love the Invictus poem, which is probably one of his finest works. I think probably, arguably, his most famous poem. I think. And I'm the master of my fate, I'm the captain of my soul is the very last line in that poem. And it's a brilliant poem. It's a very dark poem in the sense that he's talking about things really going wrong, life being tough, situations being really difficult, things being looking very dire. But at the very end, he's almost like saying, look, I still have my resolve, my life is in my hand, and I will make everything within my power to make it work. Basically, that's the essence of the poem. And in his story, just in a nutshell, this guy had lots of bad luck in his life. He contracted tuberculosis at the age of 12. Now I'm talking about the 19th century, in 1800 and something. At the age of 12, he contracted tuberculosis, and back then they didn't really have the kind of therapeutics we have today. So it was pretty much a death sentence, or if not, a really miserable life for the rest of your life. And indeed, he had a miserable life for the rest of his life, because he ended up having an amputation because his tuberculosis became systemic and ended up messing up his limbs, and he ended up having an amputation on his left leg. And even with that, he spent a lot of his years in hospital, and he was a very frail man for pretty much all his life. But he refused to give up. You know, he was still determined to make it in life. He was still determined to become the best poet he could be. And actually, most of the poems he's written, he actually wrote them whilst in hospital. And even this Invictus poem that I just read to you is one of the ones that they call them the hospital poems. You know, he actually wrote them while he was still in hospital. So this guy he had the resolve to make things work. He decided that, look, my life is in my hands and I'm going to take control of my life. And that's the attitude that we need to have in our lives. That whatever we go through this pandemic, we go through times where we lose our jobs, we lose our finances, things don't go our way, but we still have to take that control and say, look, my life is in my hands. What can I do here? The same as with responsibility. You ask yourself a question, what can I do to get myself out of the trouble that I'm in? What can I do to change this situation? Taking control of your life. And I think that's the attitude that we need to have if we want to really develop that self-leadership skill in our lives. So the question we need to ask ourselves, who is in control of our life? Who is in control of our emotions? Who is in control of our happiness? You know, who is in control of our health even, you know, who is in control of our finances? You know, is it Sunak, you know, the Chancellor of the Exchequers? Is it the British economy? Is it the Brexit? If we allow other things to take control of our lives, if we allow the weather, you know, when you wake up in the morning and your mood is determined by the weather on that particular day, you've surrendered control to something else. I think taking control of your life, taking control of everything that you have is one of the most important steps in acquiring self-leadership skills. Let's crack on. The third one is self-mastery. Now, if I'm going to define self-mastery, basically that's just self-influence to become the best version of yourself. You know, in us, we all have this huge, enormous potential of what we could be, you know, and self-mastery is being able to influence yourself to realize that full potential that you have, that ability to kind of get the best out of yourself. That's what self-mastery is. And arguably that is the hardest thing that you can ever do. There is a certain quote that I saw, actually it's by Dr. John C. Maxwell as well. He said that, and I was reading it, was it yesterday or the day before, I can't remember. I even quoted it on my Facebook page because I loved it so much. It says that fools want to conquer the world, but the wise strive to conquer themselves. You know what I mean? It's all about trying to get the best out of yourself, because if you get the best out of yourself, you can go so far. You don't have to worry about anything out there. Sometimes you pick all these fights and battles and all these things, and oh, you know, my manager is this, oh, you know, my subordinates are that, oh, my wife is this, oh, my children are that, because we're trying to pick these fights with everybody else. You know, everybody is the enemy, you know, but we're not actually trying to look within and say, right, what can I do different in my life? How can I better myself? How can I make life easier for me by becoming better? You know, rather than trying to change everybody else, how can I change myself? And you are your greatest project in life. I'm telling you, if there is one project that you have in your life, it's you. You know, getting the best out of yourself. You know, becoming the best version of yourself. If you can look at that as a lifetime project, then that you're in the right track in achieving self-mastery. Now, what does self-mastery involve? It involves three things. It involves self-awareness, it involves self-motivation, and it involves life by design, designing your own life, okay? Now, what is self-awareness? That's just the conscious knowledge of one's own character and feelings. You almost like being in tune with yourself, knowing how you feel, knowing your values, knowing what makes you tick, knowing what angers you, knowing your strength, knowing your weaknesses, knowing your full range of emotions and how you can tame them, you know, knowing even how you come across, because that's something else some people are not quite aware of, because you might think that you have really good intentions, they're doing this and that, the other, but you don't quite come across the way you think you are. You know, knowing that is part of self-awareness, and I think that is very important to, if you're trying to achieve self-mastery, the first thing you have to do, you have to develop self-awareness. You need to really understand yourself. And how do you do that? You do that through reflection, you do that through meditation, you do that through journaling, you know, writing things down about yourself, how you feel, what your plans are, how you want to do your day, what your achievements are, and just keep writing things down. I sometimes get so amazed when I go back and read my journals and stuff that I've written many years in the past. And sometimes I even look at them and think, wow, was that me? What frame of mind was I in writing these things? Because sometimes you look at these things and you feel so detached. You look at them, you think like, surely that's not me, but it is you. The reason you think it's not you is because you don't quite know yourself that well. You don't know yourself as well as you think you do. You know what I mean? So it's really important to write these things down and constantly go back to them, because it really opens up who you are, and it really opens up the potentials, the options that you have, and what you thought you couldn't do sometimes. It can even show you that you are quite capable of doing those things. So it's really important to do these things. But the last thing I think is also really important, counseling and advice. I think it's really important also to involve other people, involve your loved ones. Listen to what they say about you. Listen to those nuances, you know, the things they say about you that sometimes you don't particularly like, you know, those things you kind of feel like, oh, why are you telling me this? Oh, why do you keep telling me this? They're very important, because those feedbacks, those advices, you know, those counsels, they really point something. You know, remember when I said that sometimes you have intentions, but you don't come across as well as you think you are. So sometimes those feedbacks, they put things into perspective. They put you on a scale, you know, on a more even scale, because sometimes we're not quite honest with ourselves. So it's really important to develop self-awareness, to really welcome advice and listen to those advice. While Paul was talking in the chat section, someone pointed out, I'm not sure if it was Paul Head or someone else, and said that, you know, leadership is about listening. It's about taking advice. You know, lots of leaders, they struggle with taking advice. They struggle with listening. They think that's a weakness, but it's not. Taking advice, listening, getting feedback is actually a really big strength if you want to be a leader, not just a leader to others, but even a leader to yourself, because that really gives you a new perspective to things. So I said the second one is self-motivation. I've got a full talk on self-motivation. Probably another time we'll spend a full session on talking about self-motivation, because I think this is a big one. But motivation is what drives you to do things. And self-motivation is that deliberate action that you do to generate that force, you know. And usually with self-motivation, you know, in life, what drives us? There are two things. There is the positive force and a negative force. It's either you're driven with inspiration or you're driven with desperation. Let me give you an example. If you want, say, it's either you aspire to be financially successful, and that becomes your inspiration, and you start doing the right things, i.e. saving, cutting down on your spending, you know, working harder, working smarter, investing, and doing all those things that are necessary to make yourself more financially prudent through inspiration. Or another option is you start going behind on your credit, and you don't pay your rent, and the creditors start coming knocking on your door, and that becomes the desperation. And as a result, what do? You start seeking help, and as a result, what do? They tell you to start cutting down on your expenses, and you have to get a second job and do this and that. As a result, you also still get the results, but it is out of desperation. So you see the difference. On one end, you have someone who gets inspired by what they want to achieve, and they attain financial freedom. On the other hand, you have someone working out of desperation because of the struggles and the taxman knocking on the door, and out of desperation, they do the necessary. So those are the two forces that really drive us into action. Now, self-motivation is you getting more inspiration out of yourself, is you getting inspiration to work in your favor and in your favor. And how do you do that? You do that through learning. You can do that through learning, through books, through people that have gone before you, your role models. Learn about them, listen to them, study them. Books, you know, seminars. That just keeps inspiring you. It gives you a mark to aim at, and that's the motivation that you need. Through sharing, like what we're doing right now, these kind of spaces, you come here, you hear other people speak, you hear new ideas, it inspires you, it challenges you, it makes you start acting differently, it makes you start thinking differently. It's really important. And the last one is planning. You know, you can't motivate yourself if you don't have a plan. You know, sometimes you wake up in the morning and you feel so unmotivated. Why? Because you don't really you have nothing to look forward to that day. You know what I mean? I mean, trust me, days that I'm looking, if there's something that I'm really looking forward, on a particular day. I can't even sleep the night before. You know that feeling, right? You're so much looking forward to something on a particular day, and at 5 o'clock in the morning, you're already up. You can't go back to sleep. Why? Because you're so excited. You're so charged up. You're so energetic. You can't wait to start the day. Why? Because you have your day all laid up. You're very excited about it. You're so motivated. You're so full of energy. But guess what? If you've got nothing to look forward to, what happens when you wake up in the morning? On a Saturday morning, you're not going to work. You're not looking forward to anything. You haven't got any plan for that day. You wake up in the morning, you feel like, why do I need to get out of bed? Can't I just sleep for another hour? You know what I mean? You feel demotivated. You don't have the energy. You don't have the drive. Why? Because you don't have a plan. You don't have something to look forward to. You don't have something that excites you. You don't have something that really drives you, if you like. So that's really important, self-motivation. And the last thing is life by design. Again, this is something that I've got a full lesson on. I've got a full presentation of this. Probably another time we'll go through that. But I've got this quote that says, if you don't design it yourself, you'll get a box standard life instead. Now, what is a box standard life? Box standard life is the life that, all the problems you can think of, all the worst case scenarios you can think of, all the struggles you can think of, there's that Hooke's law that says if something, is it Hooke's law? Yeah, I think it's Hooke's law. If anything can go wrong, it will. So that's the thing. If you don't actually design your life, then that would be true for you, because if anything can go wrong, it will go wrong. That's the box standard life. But if you actually design your life, what do I mean by designing your life? If you actually set out your life in advance, decide what your values are, decide what you want in life, decide what your goals are, decide what you want to be in 5 or 10 years, decide what changes you need to make, and actually start making steps to make those changes in your life to become what you be. Deciding even what program to follow. So many times we talk of there are programs, there are health programs, there are dieting programs, there are even mind and wellness programs. I've even got a program that I'm following myself to do with personal development, which kind of keeps me in place, keeps me at it, to make sure that my life is almost like laid out and according to plan, which actually helps me control myself, allows me to master myself, if you like. So life by design is so really important. You have to have that guts to say, you know what, this is what I want out of life, and I'm going to pursue this and make sure that I get it. Now, the last thing I want to talk about really quickly is a concept I call triad of success. Now, this is a concept I've come up with after studying a lot of personal development gurus, reading a lot of books, listening to a lot of these personal development speakers. And I've come up with these 3 things that I think they are key. They're really important to anybody's success. And the first one is, I've called it work for yourself. The second one is work on yourself. And the third one is serve others. In my opinion, this is what encapsulates what self-leadership is. Now, when I say work for yourself, a lot of people think, does it mean I have to start my own business? Does it mean that I have to be self-employed? Far from it. That's not what I'm talking about at all. When I say work for yourself, what I mean is you need to be accountable to yourself. Even if you're employed, you're working for someone else, you're running your own business, it doesn't matter. First and foremost, you need to be accountable to yourself. It means you have to answer to you, rather than you just answering to your boss or your employer, you need to also answer to you. And on top of that, you have to hold yourself to a much higher standard of accountability than the one that others are holding you. What do I mean by that? If you want to be able to get to work on time all the time, if your employer says you need to get there at 2 o'clock, you need to be able to tell yourself that I need to be there at 1:45. You understand what I mean? That's like the simplest of holding yourself to a higher accountability. Because basically what you're trying to say is that I need to hold myself at a much higher standard than what they do. Because if you do that, you're on your road to success. Even the good book, the Bible, there is a full teaching on that. It says that if someone asks you to go 1 mile with them, go with them 2 miles. That means though they require you to go with them 1 mile, you're going 2 with them. Say if they hit you on one side, turn the other. It means have a much higher standard, a much higher level of accountability with yourself than with the one that people are imposing on you. That's the first key to self-leadership and indeed to success. The second one is very similar to that, but it has a slightly different connotation. Work on yourself. Now, working on yourself is very much about daily self-improvement. So many times we work for everybody else. You work for an employer, you work for your job. We spend so much time doing our work. We get so much stress with it. We do everything, and we forget working on ourselves. Do you remember when we were talking about self-mastery, about getting the best out of yourself? You need to work that. You need to work on yourself. You need to study yourself. You need to hone your skills. You need to learn. I mean, I aspire to be a motivational speaker. I aspire to be a public speaker. How do I hone my skills? How do I increase my knowledge? How do I develop these skills? Well, how much time do I spend doing those things? Or is it just a wishful thinking? That goes into how much you work on yourself. You know, I know maybe you have your day job. You need that to pay your bills. Yes, but how much time do you spend on top of that to develop yourself, to develop your skills, to develop your interpersonal skills, to develop your communication skills, to develop your leadership skills, to develop anything, because all those things are important to help you become a better person, to become a better employee, to become a better leader, you know, to get more out of life. So that is really important, and it's the question that we need to ask ourselves today: that how much time do we devote in developing ourselves? And the last one, which I've termed it the ultimate measure of one's worth, is service to others. And I think that should be the goal of everything we've been talking about here. When we talk about leadership, when we talk about self-leadership, it should all be about serving others. It should all be about making a difference to someone else's life. Do you remember when I was talking about the highest level of existence, the interdependence one? It's when you can look beyond yourself and look at outside and say, right, how can I make a difference in someone else's life? And if you go through history and look at those great leaders and successful people throughout time, we don't remember their success because of what they did for themselves. We remember their success for what they did for others every single time. So really, that is like the pinnacle. That is like the ultimate aim of existence, ultimate aim of life. How much do we serve others? So the triad of success: work for yourself, work on yourself, and serve others. And I think that sums up what self-leadership is all about. That's it for my presentation. And let me get out of here, and then we can have a little bit of a discussion. Thank you so much for listening. So yeah, I know wow, we're actually running out of time. So, but let's allow a couple of minutes of discussion before we wind up. The floor is open. If you want to say something, you're more than welcome, while I look at the chats to see if anything came up. You're welcome.
Yeah, hello?
We can hear you, Anthony. Go on.
Okay. I mean, you know, like you sent us a message about this guy who said he's the captain of his whole life, you know. And then before that, I wrote something that I am the author of my own life and I live by what I create. Way back in the 90s, you know, when the Sierra Leone Civil War was really on, they opened a new radio station in one of our cities they call Bo. So that was a kind of jangle, you know, throughout 1994, 95, that thing really used to be playing, you know. It's actually motivated me that I personally absorbed it as my own, you know. And like when I see that statement is similarity. And I was in real life, you know, like when we are talking about leadership, if somebody you are not self-disciplined, it's really going to be difficult for your work to go over there. And just like how Mr. Victor was saying, I mean, like our leadership or like leaders in our country, in most institutions, they just fail because people are so much selfish, you know. They don't train people that they're going to prepare the society because they feel that they have reached that level, so the position belongs to them. I mean, I watched a video about one of African presidents guy about Bongo. This man, he already had he's paralyzed, you know. Mentally, this guy is weak, but yet still, he is still a president. How can you imagine those kind of things? What is he doing over there? Why are they keeping him there? You know, when seeing all these things, it just don't make any sense for me. you know?
Absolutely, absolutely, Anthony. Absolutely, Anthony. Yeah, guys, you're more than welcome to add on what Anthony was saying, or there's another point you wanted to bring out based on the presentations, mine or Paul's. You're more than welcome. We'd like to hear as many contributions as possible.
No, I just wanted to make a comment, just to thank you for what you have shared, both of you. And my take is that I need to really work on myself in terms of discipline and self-control, because that's, I think, is the key to anything that we are trying to do. So, as I said, it's just to thank you for reminding me of that. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. We're here to challenge each other and really try and encourage each other. Victor, I think you wanted to say something.
Do I still remember what I wanted to say? Yeah. I think I just want to go back to a comment I posted earlier in the chat about self-doubt being a barrier to all the three types of leadership that Paul outlined in his earlier discussion. It may come from, may happen in several different ways. Either we lack confidence in ourselves, or it has been instilled in us that we are not good enough. So you kind of go around life with that baggage. And as such, you ignore the qualities that are within yourself to be a good leader. I think that was a very good point in outlining those different types of leadership, starting with yourself. That if you're able to get yourself motivated enough, you don't have to. In my line of work, my definition of a leader is not the eldest person in a community, or the wealthiest, or the most prominent or well-known. It's those people that are sacrificing their time and their effort to promote their communities, to engage on behalf of their communities, to make their voices heard. That are the leaders that I recognize in my line of work, and that I always go to, if you like.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Victor. Paul Mhando, I think you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Victor, for what you have shared. I just wanted to contribute something. When somebody asked about especially for the leaders who don't want to come out in power, there is one thing that is very important. As a leader, you need to have values. I think probably if Charles will set this topic of leadership to continue, because it's so big, so probably we can have another session, because this is the key. Because everything starts in leadership. Most of the things, they fail or they succeed because of leadership. Because of leadership. That is the key of everything. And it starts with personal leadership, self-leadership. So as a leader, you need to have set of values that you follow. You need to have principles that you can hold yourself accountable to. Even God himself, for those who Bible readers, he said that I've set my word above my name. So he has set some principles, and even himself, he subjected himself to those principles. So as a leader, if you have set values and principles that you follow, when position come, because your principles will tell you that a position is just a privilege. It's not for you to own. So your set values and principles will hold you accountable, and you say, no, I'm not here because my principle says this. But most of leaders, they go into a position position without any principles, without any values. And when they have given power, power is so sweet to them. They say, I've arrived. I'm not going to come out of it. And because of the things that they do, some of them, they fear to come out of that position because they'll be held accountable. Some of them, they know I'm going to be put to jail, so I'm not going to come out, you know. So as a leader, starting with yourself now, when you don't have any position, set some values and principles, good values, not only value, good values and principles, and live by those ones. When you are given position, you still adhere to those values. And position will mean nothing to you because position is just a privilege for a time. And you'll be able even to prepare others, influence others to take that position because you know that position is just a privilege. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Paul. Yeah, I think it's important. We'll probably have another session on leadership and probably go beyond just self-leadership and look at it in a more holistic way and address some of these issues because I think they're really important. What you said, Paul, is really important. Maxwell puts it this way. He says, everything rises and falls on leadership. I mean, it's exactly what you just said. He just says it differently. And it's true, everything. I mean, if you're starting a business right now, even if that business is just a one-person business, you just got to run it yourself. What is going to determine its success or failure? It's your level of leadership, how well you can manage yourself to run that business. You know, so leadership covers everything. You know, in a family, the relationship between a husband and a wife, it's all about leadership. And when I'm saying leadership, I'm not meaning whether a husband is on top of the wife or the wife is on top of the husband, because I'm not talking about position here. I'm talking about the principles of leadership, the points that we were talking about taking responsibility beyond yourself, about thinking to serve others, you know, about focusing on people rather than power. You know, I'm talking about, you know, all these little principles that we've been talking about here from the very beginning, that Paul has been mentioning, that I've been mentioning, that others have been mentioning. They are all ingredients into become better people. That's why I'm saying leadership is just prerequisite to a good life in general. So I think it's important that we might have another discussion another time and go deeper into how we can kind of really encourage this, and also answer the question, how can we create better leaders in our communities? I think part of the problem, in my opinion, I think with the diaspora community, with ethnic minorities, like in the UK, for instance, is that they lack leadership within. So basically, they tend to respond more to things that are happening outside, to the external influences, to what the policies say, to what the government says, to what the trend is saying, what Black Lives Matter is happening, is saying, you know, all these things, what the news say. And therefore, because of that lack of leadership, we have failed to really thrive as a community. And I think it's important to kind of extrapolate this discussion to that as well. And probably we might need to set a discussion on that and have that conversation. I see Chitawa there, he's very excited, wants to say something. You're welcome.
You know, I'm just bubbling because you're touching some areas that I think, you know, we need another session, because, you know, when we mention it, some people have criticized that statement that leadership follows and rises around leadership because of the external circumstances. You know, there's what we call intersectional issues that, you know, is beyond just being a leader or, you know, influencing something to happen. It's beyond that. For example, the pandemic that we've gone through. So as I'm saying, you know, we just need another time to expand this and just inform ourselves and criticize some of our thoughts that we have on that. So that's what I wanted to say, that because we don't have enough time.
Absolutely. I think we'll have to do that. We're actually 15 minutes beyond our allocated time. So thank you so much, guys. We'll definitely set another time. Watch this space. We'll send you info on when the the next meeting will be. We're thinking of doing it on the 19th, but we think it might be too close to Christmas, so we might postpone that and probably aim for the next one sometime, maybe early next year. But we'll keep you posted for that. But definitely, I think we need more time to talk about this area, because I think it is really, really, really important.
I think want to say something.
We can't hear you, Paul.
Thank you to you and Charles for a great session. That's all.
All right.
And just quickly, what Giles said about writing, journaling, we absorb more into our brains when our brains are calm and our brainwaves are in a calm. The lower the brainwaves, the better. And when we write down, our brainwaves, when we're writing and concentrating on writing, our brainwaves slow right down. So it's more likely to go in and stay in there and absorb and be more coherent in our brains. That's why journaling works, because when you write stuff, your brain waves slow down, your thoughts slow down when you're concentrating on writing.
There you go. There's your science right there. No, but yeah, these things do work. And
by the way, that is something I need to work on. Of this program that I'm doing, I'm failing miserably at the journaling. It's something I'm not good at. I've never been good at writing, and it's something that I personally have still got to work on. But I'm doing all the other aspects of it, the meditation and that, but the journaling I'm absolutely pants at.
Yeah. On that note, Paul, I just have to say, sometimes what we're providing here, like what Paul has said about journaling and meditation and all these other things that I did mention in my presentation, they're like tools. I mean, it's not like you one fits all. There are some things that maybe more natural with you. It's easier for you to do them. By all means, do them. There are others that might be more difficult. Don't beat yourself up and say like, I couldn't get this done. This doesn't work. No, but what works for you, bring it on board, incorporate it in your life and in your practice. And that's the best way you can get the most out of these conversations. If something resonates really well with you, even if it's just one thing, run with it, let it really impact your life. And that's how to go. Really.
Just one more quick thing.
Yes, Paul.
The other thing that I've learned recently is we have a tendency to make a goal, and we don't reach that goal, we fail, and what we have a habit of doing is then we go into our downward spiral, and instead of making another goal a bit more achievable and smaller to give ourselves the power to then jump to the next goal, we set ourselves in, we're so annoyed and angry that we didn't reach our goal that we set ourselves an even bigger goal. and it's a trap that some people fall into. Oh no, I failed that, I'm going to do it this time, and you make yourself a bigger goal. It's if you fail at that goal, maybe just make a goal slightly more achievable, and that will empower you then to make it to the next stage. So just come down a level, don't try and go up, because the more you defeat yourself and fail at your goals and are critical of yourself, the less likely you are to bring yourself back up off the floor again.
Yeah, it's that paradox, isn't it? You keep proving yourself wrong, and then before you know it, it comes back to what Victor was saying: self-doubt. Next time you don't trust yourself to be able to achieve anything, because all you can think of every single time you tried, you kept failing. But yes, absolutely. So sometimes making these little chunks, small goals that you can achieve, it kind of reinforces the notion that you can, and that builds your confidence and later on makes you more successful. Thank you so much, guys. We have to wind up this meeting. Thank you for your time. Thank you for coming, and watch this space. I'll send information about the next meeting, and have a lovely weekend. Take care.
I mean, the thanks are yours, guys.
Thank you.
You've been excellent. Excellent.
Thank you very much, Paul. Thank you, Charles.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you,
James.
guys.
Nice to see you, James.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Victor.
Have a nice weekend. Nice to meet you all.
Thank you.